ಒಂದು ಸಮಾಜಕ್ಕೆ, ಭಾರತ ಸಮಾಜಕ್ಕೆ, ಭಾರತ ದೇಶದಕ್ಕೆ ಮುಂದೆ ಬರಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಸಂಸ್ಕೃತಿನೇ ಬಹಳ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್. ಸಂಸ್ಕೃತಿ ಇಲ್ಲ ದೇಶ ಆಗಲ್ಲ. ಆಮೇಲೆ ಭಾರತ ದೇಶದಲ್ಲಿ ನಮಗೊಂದು ದೊಡ್ಡ ಒಂದು ಸಮಸ್ಯೆವಿದೆ. 70 ವರ್ಷ ನಮಗಿದು ಫ್ರೀಡಮ್ ಸಿಕ್ಕ ಮೇಲೆ 70 ವರ್ಷ ಆದಮೇಲೆ ಅಯೋಧ್ಯದಲ್ಲಿ ಒಬ್ಬ ಯೋಗಿ ಬಂದ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಅಯೋಧ್ಯದಲ್ಲಿ ರಾಮನ ಚರಿತ್ರೆ ಮಾತಾಡ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಅಲ್ಲೊಂದು ಪೂಜೆ ಗೀಜೆ ಮಾಡಿಬಿಟ್ಟು ಏನೋ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು. 70 ವರ್ಷ ಆಯಿತು. ಅಯೋಧ್ಯ ಭಾರತ ವರ್ಷದಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ಬಹಳ ದೊಡ್ಡದು ಜಾಗ. ನಮಗೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಮ್ಮ ರಾಮರಾಯರು ಇದ್ದಾರೆ, ಅಲ್ಲಿಂದನೇ ಬಂದಿದ್ದು, ಹುಟ್ಟಿದವರು. ಆ ಸ್ಥಳ ನಮ್ದೆಲ್ಲ. ಬೇರೆ ಯಾವ ಸಮಾಜದಲ್ಲಿ ನೋಡಿ ನೀವು, ಇಸ್ಲಾಂ ಅವ್ರು ನೋಡಿ, ಕ್ರೈಸ್ತವ್ರು ನೋಡಿ, ಅವ್ರೆಲ್ಲದೂ ಒಂದು ಜಾಗ ಇದೆ. ಮೆಕ್ಕಾ ಮದೀನಾ ಅವ್ರ ಜಾಗ ಇದೆ. ಮೆಕ್ಕಾ ಮಧ್ಯೆ ನಾನು ಹೋಗೋಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ, ಯಾರೂ ಹೋಗೋಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ, ಮುಸಲ್ಮಾನರೇ ಹೋಗೋದು. ಸರಿ, ಅವ್ರಿಷ್ಟ. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಜೆರೂಸಲಮಲ್ಲಿ ಜೂಯಿಷ್ ಇಸಾಯಿ ಅವರು, ಜೂಯಿಷ್ ಅವರು, ಮುಸಲ್ಮಾನ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹೋಗ್ತಾರೆ, ಅವ್ರ ಜಾಗ ಇದೆ. ಅದೇ ನಮಗೆ ಹಿಂದೂವರಿಗೆ ಜಾಗ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಅಯೋಧ್ಯ ಅಂದರೆ ಆ ಸ್ಥಳದಲ್ಲಿ ರಾಮ ಅವರು ಜನ್ಮಸ್ಥಳದಲ್ಲಿ ನಮ್ಮ ಒಂದು ದೇವಾಲಯ ಮಾಡೋಕ್ಕೆ ನಮಗೆ ಜಗದಿಲ್ಲ. 100 ಕೋಟಿ ಹಿಂದೂಗಳು, 100 ಕೋಟಿ ಹಿಂದೂಗಳಿಗೆ ಜಾಗ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಕೋಟಿಗೆ ಹೋಗ್ಬೇಕು, ಚರ್ಚೆ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಯಿತು. ಆ ಥರ ನಮ್ಮ ಸ್ಥಿತಿ ಆಗ್ಬಿಟ್ಟಿದೆ. ಆಮೇಲೆ ವಾರಣಾಸಿ, ಕಾಶಿಗೆ ಹೋದ್ರೆ, ಕಾಶಿ ಅಂದರೆ ಕಾಶಿ ಇಸ್ ದ ಓಲ್ಡೆಸ್ಟ್ ಲಿವಿಂಗ್ ಸಿಟಿ ಆನ್ ದ ಪ್ಲಾನೆಟ್. ಕಾಶಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಮೋದಿ ಅವರು ಬರೋ ಮುಂಚೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹೋದ್ರೆ ಒಂದು ಗಲೀಜಾಗಿ ಒಂದು ಊರು. ನಮ್ಮ ಘಾಟಿಗೆಲ್ಲ ಗಲೀಜಿದೆ. ಗಂಗಾ ನೋಡಿದ್ರೆ ಅದು ನಾವು ಪವಿತ್ರ ಅಂತ ಒಂದು ಸ್ಥಳ. ಅದು ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಸ್ನಾನ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ, ನೀರು ಕುಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಆದರೆ ಏನೇನೋ ಇದೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನದಿ ಕೆಡಿಸ್ಬಿಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಅವ್ರು ಬಂದ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಅಷ್ಟೆಲ್ಲ ಘಾಟ್ಸ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಕ್ಲೀನ್ ಮಾಡಿಬಿಟ್ಟು ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹೋದ್ರೆ ಏನೋ ಒಂದು ಆರತಿ, ಅದು ರಾತ್ರಿ ಒಂದು ಆರತಿ ನೋಡಿದ್ರೆ ಏನೋ ದೇವರೇ ಬಂದೇನಂತ ನಮ್ಗಾಗತ್ತೆ. ಅದೇ ನಮ್ಮೂರು ಕಾಶಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ನಮಗೆ ಸ್ಥಳ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಅದೊಂದು ವಿಶ್ವನಾಥ ದೇವಾಲಯಕ್ಕೆ ಹೋದ್ರೆ ಪಕ್ಕದಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ದೊಡ್ಡ ಭೂತ ಇದೆ. ನಾವು ಮಥುರಾ ಹೋದ್ರೆ ಕೃಷ್ಣನ ಒಂದು ದೇವಾಲಯ ಇದೆ, ಅದು ದೊಡ್ಡ ಮೇಲೆ ಒಂದು ದೊಡ್ಡ ಭೂತ ಇದೆ. ಅದು ಯಾರಿಗೂ ಅರ್ಥ ಆಗಲ್ಲ, ಹಿಂದೂ ಜನರಿಗೆ ಅರ್ಥ ಆಗಲ್ಲ ಏನದು ಅಂತ. ಯಾಕೆ ಅರ್ಥ ಆಗಿಲ್ಲ? ನಾವು ನೋಡಿಲ್ಲ, ನಾನು ನೋಡಿಲ್ಲ, ನನಗೂ ಏನೂ ಅರ್ಥ ಆಗಿಲ್ಲ, ನಾನು ನೋಡೇ ಇಲ್ಲ. ನಾವು ಹೋದ್ವಿ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹೋದ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ನೋಡ್ಬಿಟ್ರೆ ಏನೋ ಒಂದು ಮನಸ್ಸಲ್ಲಿ ಭಾಳ ಒಂದು ಉತ್ಸಾಹ, ಏನೋ ಒಂದು ಆಯಿತು. ಏನಪ್ಪ ಇದು, ನಮ್ಮ ಹಿರಿಯರು ಎಷ್ಟು ಕಷ್ಟಪಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ, ಕಷ್ಟಪಟ್ಟುಬಿಟ್ಟು ನಮ್ಮ ಸಂಸ್ಕೃತಿ ಇಷ್ಟು ದೂರ ತೊಗೊಂಡ್ಬಂದಿದ್ದಾರೆ, ನಾವು ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಮುಂದೆ ತೊಗೊಂಡು ಹೋಗ್ಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಏನೋ ಒಂದು ಮನಸ್ಸಲ್ಲಿ ಬಂತು. ಈ ಥರ ಭಾರತ ವರ್ಷದಲ್ಲಿ ಹಿಂದೂ ಸಮಾಜಕ್ಕೆ ಸ್ಥಳವಿಲ್ಲ. ಇದು ಹೆಂಗಾಯ್ತು, ಯಾಕೆ ಆಯಿತು, ಏನು ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಒಂದು ವಿಷಯ ಮೇಲೆ ನಾನು ಮಾತಾಡೋಕ್ಕೆ ನಾನು ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ. ಇವಾಗ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಇಂಗ್ಲೀಷಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತೀನಿ, ಯಾಕಂದರೆ ನಾರಾಯಣಾಚಾರ್ಯ ಮೇಲೆ ಒಳ್ಳೆ ಭಾಷೆ ಮಾತಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಕೋಪ ಬರ್ಬೋದು. Friends, from the dawn of human civilization till 1825, India and China were the richest country on this planet. India and China made up 55% of GDP. Mandelson, the historian and economist, has written about how India and China were the largest economies because these countries had large populations and they were artisanal economies. There were no machines, so societies depend on artisans, and they were skilled people in this country, and they had a large export surplus, and they were trading nations, free market economies, and therefore they were very rich. Pliny the Elder 2000 years ago wrote that trade with India will impoverish Rome, because Rome bought spices and textiles from India and had to pay for it in gold and silver. And to pay for it in gold and silver, they plundered many kingdoms to get the gold to pay for the so-called luxuries. And Indian textiles were the dress that they wore. You see them in the pictures, you see them wearing the togas, they were all made of Indian textiles. So India was a rich country. On the dawn of civilization, today on this planet there are only two old civilizations which are existing in the original form, India and China. All other civilization, the Aztec, the Incas, they're all gone. Here in the Western world, the Jewish civilization is gone, the Sumerians are gone, all of them are gone. Yes, Islam has a civilization in a very different form. They're a conquering civilization. Christianity is also a conquering civilization, but they're of recent origin, 2000 years, 1400, 1500 years. So India and China are the only remaining civilization because they had something special in them, and they were large countries, and they developed their economies based upon that civilization. In 1825, a very important event happened. The steam engine went off patent and the age of machines started. Till then, the world depended upon artisans, human beings, skilled beings, and we had a lot of them in this country, and therefore we were very prosperous. India did trade with the West to the Arabs. The Arabs are the intermediaries who took our spices and textiles and exported to Europe. And then the Europeans came down the coast with Vasco da Gama in 1500 and came to India. They were escorted from the African coast by a Gujarati tradesman and a merchant to come here. And they came to Goa, and we were there in Goa, Konkanis. And in Goa, the Portuguese came, conquered, set up their first colony, and we were persecuted. Our temples were destroyed. Our women were raped. Our riches were taken away. And many of them were converted. And they drove us away. And we came down south to Kochi and to other places. A stateless people came down south even for. We suffered the Inquisition. The Goa Inquisition was more brutal than any Inquisition on this planet. So the Konkanis suffered the most, and they came down, and we suffered the brutality of Western imperialism and colonization at that point of time. And then the British came to India to trade with the East India Company, and in the Battle of Plassey in 1857, Clive defeated Sirajuddin because he was betrayed by Mir Qasim. And then in the Battle of Buxar in 1864, the British took over, a company took over the richest province in the world, Bengal. Bengal was the richest province in the world at that point of time. And then started the loot of India. Before then, we had the Islamic invasion from all over the world. They came here, Ghazni came, Ghazni looted and went, and then the Mughals came, the Mughals stayed here, and the Mughals built their empire in India with Delhi. And the Mughals at one point of time had control over 52% of India's GDP. 52% of the GDP of the richest country in the world was under the control of the Mughals. In 1739, I just got a cough. But in 1739, Nadir Shah came from Persia to fight against the Mughals and looted India. I went to Tehran. I went to Tehran to the central bank. I went to Tehran to the central bank of Tehran, central bank like Reserve Bank of India. They have a treasure room, 5 times as big as this. When you went to the treasure room, you saw chests of emeralds, of rubies, of jewelry, of pearls, every precious stone available in plenty, big chests full of them. The Peacock Throne was also looted by Nadir Shah. So Nadir Shah came in 1739, conquered the Mughals and looted all this money and took it out to Persia. Despite so much of loot, despite so much of destruction by Islamic invasion, India remained a prosperous country. Then came the British. And the British loot of India destroyed India and made India poor. We should know this because this is important to preserve our civilizational values and to preserve our culture. It's very important because economics plays a great role in preserving culture. What did the British do? The British ruled over the province of Bengal. The British levied tax on the people. Using the tax money, they bought the goods, textiles and everything, exported to Europe and made money. Because they were a trading company. And they exported to the US, which was a British colony, exported to the rest of the world. And they took them. So what did they do? Levy tax, use the money of the people by levying tax, and export it and make money. This was the loot and drain of India, India's economic resources. Utsa Patnaik of Columbia University written a book called the Drain of India. From 1757 till 1947, the total money that was taken away from this country is equivalent to $45 trillion of today's money. $45 trillion. The US GDP is $21 trillion. The UK GDP is $2.6 trillion. But $45 trillion of money was taken away from India by the British. 123 of the 200 richest families in Great Britain got their wealth from looting India. That are the kind of loot that happened in this country. And there's a book written called The Case for India by Will Durant. There's a Kannada edition also which has been translated. Will Durant writes, in 1930, the money taken away by British from 1857 at the time they came was equal to $450 billion in 1930 money. And he writes, the most sordid exploitation of any country by another country was the exploitation of India by the British. They levied 50% tax on land revenue. 50% tax on land revenue. They cut off the thumbs of the weavers of Dhaka because they were doing Dhaka muslin. And Dhaka muslin was so fine that you could take a shawl and put it through a ring. They were such skilled workmen. And when the peasants could not pay the tax put on them, they tied them and tied them to the ground so their skin was hurt by the hot sun and the skin dried. They tortured them. They made them grow indigo. They made them do all kinds of things to exploit them. There was a famine in Bengal, I think 1767, 1768. Some 8-9 million Bengalis died. In 1942, 1943, there's a famine in Bengal. 4.5 million Bengalis died. Together during British rule, 3.5 crore Indians died of famine. And all those years when Indians died of famine, India exported food. India was never short of food. Never short of food. But Indians had no money to buy food because they were cruelly exploited, they were taxed out of existence, and they took away. And Will Durant writes in his book, The Case for India, that the ankle of the Indian peasant, was so small, so thin that he could just put his fingers around them. The ankle, he could put his fingers around them and see. They were enfeebled. We were enfeebled, deprived civilization of so many years of riches because we were exploited and the money was taken away. And Great Britain built his empire. In the First World War, 1.5 Indians fought for the Allies. Second World War, 2.5 million Indians fought for the Allies. At the end of the Second World War, Great Britain owed us 1.5 billion pounds, which is the richest country after the devastation at that point of time in Asia. China was devastated after 100 years of civil war. The Southeast Asia was devastated by the war. Japan was bombed, and India was the only country. And this 1.5 billion pounds was owed by us, and that time, $1 was equal to 4 rupees. India was a convertible currency. And we wanted to convert into dollars because the dollars was appreciating. And the British, soon after, 1949 I think, devalued the currency by 30%, didn't allow us to use the money. This is the money owed to India for fighting the war on behalf of the British because they took away our goods, they took away supplies, and they fought the war. Even the First World War, they took away all our supplies and fought the war. Our soldiers fought in the fields of Flanders, our soldiers fought in Basra, our soldiers fought in the Middle East, our soldiers fought in China. Our soldiers were the bulwark on which the British built their empire. That's the most sordid exploitation of any country by another in human history. We must not forget that. Because we are told by many people, these Anglophiles in India, that the British brought civilization to India. The British brought barbarity to India. Yes, we learn English. We learn the noble ideas of liberalism at that point of time because Europe was undergoing a renaissance. There was a change from the old feudal order to a more democratic order. We had Ganatantra, our democracy in Middle India 2000 years ago. There are stories told about the Ganatantra there. But we were all ruled by kingdoms at that point of time. And that was the history of the economic history of India. I'll explain to you why economics is important. Then we had freedom in 47 and Pandit Nehru took over. Pandit Nehru was educated in Cambridge. He was under the influence of Fabian economics. The Fabian economics by Beatrice and Beatrice Webb were economists who followed the socialistic school, where they believed the state should have control over economic resources. And this was the philosophy in Europe at that point of time, because Europe was a very feudal country. In 1914, there was the British Empire, the French had become a republic, but still an empire, the German Empire, the Austro-Hungarian Empire, there was the Tsarist in Russia, and there was the Ottoman Empire in the Middle East, who were were ruling over the Muslim world. And then in the east you had the Chinese Empire, which was struggling. In 1919 it collapsed, and you had the Japanese Empire, and India was a land of kings and kingdoms under the British. The Ottomans were the caliphs of the Muslim countries. And then 1970 started the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia. The Tsar, after 600 years, was deposed. And when 1919, the war ended, the French were destroyed, the German Empire was gone, the Austrian-Hungarian Empire was gone, the Tsarist Empire was gone, the Ottomans were gone, and they were in ferment till Kemal Atatürk came and declared a sovereign republic, secular republic, sometime in 1920. And then the Chinese Empire was gone, and the Japanese were still around, and India had fought the war. And Indian soldiers had gone to Europe and discovered the white man was not superior. The white man had fear. He also ran away from battle. He had as much fear. Everybody is a human being. Nobody is a superior human being. Every human being has the same ambition, irrespective of color and race in any part of the world. So they discovered that, and they came back saying that yes, we can fight against the white man, because they were brought up with the culture the white man is superior, superior civilization, and that kind of things. But the world changed, and then came socialism, and then came this fervor for workers' rights, which was required. The world cannot be feudal. The feudalism had to go, and Europe went through that kind of change. And that change took form in based on Karl Marx's ideas of communism, which was possibly a response to the extremes of feudalism at that point of time. And so in Cambridge, the Fabian economists came out with their own theories, and Nehru followed that. And Nehru had contempt for capitalism. So from 1950, he started bringing in controls, economic controls. Gandhiji told Nehru not to bring in price controls after independence in 1947. Not to bring in price control, because he said, "This desh mein sarkar vyapari hai, us desh mein janta bikari hai." This desh mein sarkar vyapari hai, us desh mein janta bikari hai. See what has happened to BSNL. BSNL is gone. We are spending 70,000 crores of our tax money just to pay people off. And BSNL ill-treated all of us. You could not get a phone, you know that, right? And then look at Air India. Another 70,000 crore gone down the tube. Like Shri Narayana said, anything the government touches will be destroyed. And government should not go to business. Look at JNU. We spend 336 crores per year as grants. They spend 575 crores. It costs 6,75,000 to educate one student in JNU. And to pay 200 rupees fees, they're all fighting. They're saying we should not pay. Yes, the poor should be protected. Why should the rich not pay? And in the name of liberalism, they want to break up this country, which is unacceptable. So we've seen this system that was set up, and it's set up by Pandit Nehru's policies. From 1950 to 1980, India grew only 3.5% a year. Population grew at 2.5% a year. Per capita income grew at 1% a year. The world grew at 4.5%. India grew 1% a year, less than the world, because of Nehru's policy of suppressing private capital. It's all recorded. There's a book called Asia Reborn by Prasenjit Basu, which gives you data of what happened to Asia. You must read the book to understand this data, because data is important. Yes, Nehru did many good things. Yes. He was young, he was modern looking. Maybe Gandhiji wanted him because he wanted to make India a different country. But he brought in an economic philosophy which was antithetical to what India was. Throughout the history, India was a free market economy based on trade, based on free commerce. And we traded and we grew rich only because trade makes, a country rich. If you read the Arthashastra, Kautilya talks about trade and how to trade. And Kautilya talks about interest rate. There's the economic thesis that the Indians had, which made them a rich country. And he suppressed Indian capitalism, brought in state capitalism. The public sector was required. Institutions were required. Not that they were not required. But why suppress private capital? He didn't allow JRD Tata to expand Tata Steel. And he told JRD, profit is a bad word. If you don't make money in profits, how will you grow? You can't become state employees. And you can't become like the Soviet Union. And in Stalin's time, whom all of them respect, 20 million Russians died. Mao, whom all of Maoists respect, killed 30 million Chinese in the Great Leap Forward and the Cultural Revolution. They were brutal, totalitarian regimes which are given a romantic cover by these leftists and admired by Nehru. 1980, India started opening up. 1980 to 1990, India grew at 5.5% a year. Population grew at 2.25%, and India became slightly richer. 1991, we are broke. We have only 15 days of foreign exchange, so we are forced to open up. From 1991 till 2019, India's GDP grew from 2.75 trillion to 275 billion to 2.73 trillion dollars. 8.6% a year for 28 years continuously in dollars. The largest growth for the largest country for the longest period except China. China grew at 9.5%. So economy grew and we are much better. By 2025, we could be 5 trillion. If not 2025, we'll be in 2026. By 2010, 2011, we'll be $10 trillion. We're the third largest economy in PPP today at $11.4 trillion. China is 25 trillion, United States is 21, we're the third largest. And in nominal terms, we are the fifth largest in the world. So economy grew when we opened up and gave economic freedom to people. In every country, the state has 5 functions. Protect the exterior borders of India. Previous government did not protect the exterior borders. Terrorists came in, killed our people, they were scared. I was told by somebody very important, when the Pakistanis were shooting at us in the border, our troops are not told not to shoot back because there's no ammunition. So when Parikar came, Uri happened. Parikar came and Uri happened. India could not hit back because they didn't have enough ammunition. They didn't have a plan. They were not ready. So Parikar spent 20,000 crores, got in ammunition, and sent the troops there to hit back. Because when the bully comes after you, you must protect your country. That's the first thing a government must do, and that's what the government did. In the United States, you touch an American, you see what President Trump will do. Anywhere in the world, he'll send his missiles. First. Second, you must maintain internal law and order. That's the first duty of a state. Third, you must deliver justice. Where is justice? There is no investment in justice. We have 18 judges per million population, and United States has 100, we need 50. We not invest in justice. When a poor man fights a rich man, the rich man says, go to court, you are dead. It takes 15, 20 years. For that Ayodhya case, it took 100 years. In the oldest case, Supreme Court only heard it now because of Justice Gogoi. And then they left it all fighting. We should not do this. Kapil Sibal said, you must not fight this. The same people who come and take our votes. But it is settled. It is a property dispute. Going back 150 years, got nothing to do with faith. It was settled. So justice is not there in this country. We must get justice. Then currency. They must manage the currency. Currency is reasonably well managed. Demonetization is a good thing. But a very important thing people don't talk about. A small part of a trading community dealt with black money. They did not pay tax. They should suffer. You should pay tax. You can fight the government, but you should pay tax. We all pay tax. We all pay tax. We don't evade taxes. Why should they not pay tax? So Modi was right. Yes, there were some mistakes made because there was not enough currency. People suffered. And then you must manage foreign policy. In foreign policy, India was looked down upon because of Nehru's policy of non-alignment. In 1950, they were the allies, they were the Soviet Union, and the Cold War started. But Nehru said we'll be non-aligned. If you're non-aligned, neither here nor there, and you fall down. And that's what happened to India. The West was the supporter of India. Communists were not supporters. Look at what China did to us. And we supported China. We are supposed to get a seat in the Security Council. We supported China, and China fought against us and came, and we had almost no army. So, 5 things the state must do and 5 things the state didn't do. So our future economically now is bright. Now why is this economic thing important? Economic things is important because our Samskriti, our civilization, our culture can only go forward if there is patronage. And the patronage has to come from the king or from the state. Because cultural icons like Adikavi, Nanachar cannot work. Cannot sit every day and write a ledger. They have to spend their lifetime in learning. They have to spend their lifetime in understanding culture, in interpreting our past, in writing new thoughts, in creating new knowledge. That is their role. But they have to eat. They have to live comfortably. They have to have a nice house. Their children should have education. They must not suffer. They must not be impoverished. And how can it happen? Only when the state takes care, the Raja takes care. The Vadayas ran a court where all the cultural icons were taken care. So old Mysore was the rich place, not Tipu's Mysore. The Vadayar Mysore. Vadayar Mysore. Tipu was a jihadi, a killer, a butcher. He destroyed our temples, Konkani temples in Manjeshwar. He destroyed the Catholics. He brought 20,000 Catholics to Srinagarpatnam, 10,000 went back. He killed 70,000 Kodavas. He killed the Tulus. He killed the Nayars. We should not celebrate his Jayanti. It's a papam. It's a crime to celebrate that. And we should stand up and fight against this government. The government does that. So, you need patronage because you have to invest in culture, you have to invest in literature, you have to invest, and then you must give them Sanman. Why is honoring them important? India is the only civilization in the world, throughout human history, where the scholar is placed on a high totem pole compared to the king. Because our forefathers said, the only thing that sustains a civilization is Vidya, is knowledge, is the Vedas. Vedas are the repositories of our knowledge. Is our philosophy. That's what makes an animal into a human being. Without our mind, we are animal. It is what in our mind, our learning, that makes us human beings. So you have to have trust in the scholars. So in those days, when the Raja Guru came to the court, the king came down from his throne, welcomed him in the court, washed his feet, made him sit down on a pedestal higher than him, to show people that only a Raja, where the scholar is placed on a high pedestal, scholars are worshipped, scholars are revered, which invest in his knowledge, that will prosper. Because what remains after the Rajas go, Maharajas go, everybody goes, is our culture. And that's what remains. And India has got a very rich history, very rich culture. But again, what happened after independence? After independence, the left took over in Delhi. India is the only large country in the world where communism did not succeed. Why communism did not succeed? Because the Hindu is spiritual. The Hindu is spiritual, he believes in his culture. We had Jati system. Jati is a system of building communities. Yes, some things went wrong, but it went wrong in all societies because anything based upon a differentiation stratifies when the economy doesn't grow. It doesn't mean you throw it away. It has its good points, it has its bad points. You must take the good points and make it grow. So, when he came, the left took over. And Nehru had disdain for the ordinary Indian. He was like somebody said, a brown side. There's the famous photograph of a snake charmer when Jacqueline Kennedy came, bought in the Tin Murti Bhavan to show what India is. Will the Prime Minister of a company bring a snake charmer to show a foreign citizen? India is a country of snake charmers. It's a disgrace. But the attitude was what? It was the attitude of Western imperialism. His attitude of the colonial mind that, the West is superior, Western imperialism is superior, Indians are inferior, and therefore you must convert the Indians to a Western way of thought. No civilization can progress unless you build on what you have within yourself, because that is your root. That is what you are. You are what you are. We are the civilization. Yes, 100 crores out of 137 crores are Hindus. We are a Hindu civilization. We cannot deny this. If we go to England, David Cameron said, we are a Christian country, we must have Christian values. And in the UK, the Queen is the head of the church. Head of the church and the state. There are bishops in the House of Lords. They go to Westminster Abbey for the important religious function. They are not ashamed to say they're a Christian country. But the state is secular. And the difference between Rajya and the state. The state is secular. State has to be secular for a different reason. I will explain that. If you go to America, they take the oath on the Bible. And the Americans brought in freedom of religion for a very important issue. And what is the issue? The issue was Christianity had broken up into many denominations. They were the Baptists, the Calvinists, and they were all kind of breakers because of what Luther did in Wittenberg. Because Martin Luther did in Wittenberg, when he had this proclamation, he put it on the church wall that the Pope's rule is not okay. Right? And that started the Protestant movement, Protestant movement, which broke up the church. So they said, to prevent one denomination rising, the Holy Roman Emperor rising, they said we must have freedom of religion. Because that is what it is. They had no Jewish people, they had no Islam, they had no Hindus, they had nothing, only their religion, only Christianity. Why did they promise freedom of religion when Christianity was the only religion there? It's because of the many denominations. And that we have to understand. Why did the Europeans bring in separation of state and church and so-called secularism? Secularism is a Western concept. It came about because those days, there was the Holy Roman Empire where the church said, I am the connection between you and God. I talk to God. I am the only person who can talk to God morning, evening, whatever he does. And you, the king, have to be blessed by me. If I don't bless you, you don't derive your right to rule. And the king derived his right to rule because God gave him that right. In the name of God, many crimes have been committed. And they're still being committed. Whether they're God or not, we don't know. But extra crimes are being committed. We exist. So, since the Roman Empire became hand in glove with the kings, the movement started after Martin Luther. The Pope is no longer the representative of God. And they cannot be one person. You read the Bible, Jesus didn't say the Pope will be there. The Pope came later. Priesthood came later. And therefore, other denominations should exist. And that was the fight. And they fought for separation of state and church, or the church will not interfere in state affairs. And then the separation of state and church became what is called secularism today, where people got freedom. The church, that is the Catholic Church, withdrew. And then there was a flowering of thought, and that led to the Renaissance. Because the Dark Ages happened in Europe after the collapse of the Roman Empire, especially after the collapse of Constantinople when the Turks took over, primarily because the Pope was orthodox, he suppressed free thought. Copernicus said the sun revolves on the world, they suppressed him, they killed him for heresy, they did many things because they didn't want anybody to fight against dogma. Wherever there is a book, there is dogma. Because people of the book say, my book is the only book, my God is the only God, my prophet is the only prophet. But if there is a God and he made all human beings, how can you have only one prophet who came so late in the day? How can you have one person who is his son who came so late in the day? And what happened before that? Can it be possible? It's illogical, but people believe that and we respect their faith. We should respect all faiths because we believe everybody has a right to follow his own faith, his own way of going wherever he wants to go. Because if there is a God, that God made everybody. It cannot be that he made only a people. Because people of the book believe, if you follow the book, if you follow their faith, their prophet, they go to heaven. The rest of them are kafirs, the rest of them are pagans, they will not go to heaven. It cannot be. It cannot be. Because everybody if there's a God, God made everybody. If there's no God, he made nobody. And the earth was not created in 7 days. We are not created in 7 days. We had millions of years of history. So that is not a good construct to have. But people believe that. We respect their faith, just like we want to be respected for faith. We respect them. We don't quarrel with it. When I went to my son's school, a bishop had come. And he told his parents, the immaculate conception of Mary and the resurrection of Christ is a matter of faith, not a matter of debate. So the birth of Rama is a matter of faith, not a matter of debate. Don't question. It is beyond question. Our faith is beyond question. You don't like it, too bad for you. We believe in it. 100 crore Hindus believe in it, respect it. We are the people of this country, correct? So we don't have to be apologetic. So when Nehru took over, Nehru wanted to drag India into modernity, whatever he believed in. But you can't diversify people from their spirituality and their culture. Gandhi understood the Indian. So Gandhi wore the poor man's cloth and went all around. Gandhi did many experiments to do many things. He was a noble soul like somebody else, like everybody else. And if you read Vikram Sampath's book, Savarkar, it is because Gandhiji went with the Muslims in the Khilafat movement and did many things wrong. The Savarkar came with the Hindutva philosophy to say, this is the land of the Hindus, and who are the Hindus? He explained to them, because they were competing political forces at that point of time. So you must read in the context. In the Khilafat movement, after the fall of the Caliphate, when Kemal Ataturk abolished the Caliphate after the Ottoman Empire collapsed in 1919, the people who fought for the British, Muslim soldiers, came down to Malabar and they had the Mopla rebellion. 30,000-40,000 Hindus were butchered and killed and raped and temple destroyed there. And Gandhiji wrote somewhere, the Hindus should submit to the Muslims because they are doing something noble in the religion to get Hindu-Muslims together. Whether he did right or wrong, we'll keep it aside because we should not judge people based upon today's norm for what happened yesterday. But whatever it is, my grandmother used to tell me, she came from the Malabar, she used to tell my sister, don't go out in the evening, the Moplas will come and take you away. The Moplas took away young girls. My grandmother used to, I remember, I never understood it till 10 years ago when I read about the Mopla rebellion, what happened. I didn't know my history. We're all taught wrong history. We're not taught our history. We're not taught about Vijayanagar. We're not talking about Cholas. We're not talking about Prithviraj Chauhan. We're not talking about Shivaji. We taught about the Mughals. And it goes back to Nehru. Because Nehru tried to bring in what he thought was Western liberalism. And that led to the left coming in. And the left realized communism will not come to India because unless you destroy the Hindus, they can't touch the Muslims. You touch the Muslim, they don't go near them. We know the Rangila Rasool that happened in Lahore when somebody wrote a book and a young fanatic went and killed the author, and Iqbal came and gave a eulogy in his death and carried him to his grave, and Jinnah defended him for reasons. There is many things, we should not judge them by whatever it is. But Nehru thought that and the left joined and they rewrote our history. They had a National Integration Council, they rewrote history, then Indira followed it up. Nurul Hasan coming here destroyed our history and our civilization values because Nurul Hasan made sure that all the faculty in central institution, when he became the Minister of Education in Indira Gandhi's cabinet, he brought in only leftists. I think K.M. Panikkar or somebody, one historian is there in a video where he says that if you're not the leftist and didn't follow Marxism, you never got a job. So for 20, 30 years, all the institutions, Delhi, the central government was captured by the Marxists and they brought in only their people and they suppressed everybody else. Our own Kannada writer, eminent writer, S.L. Bhairappa. S.L. Bhairappa was part of this committee where they did it and he protested, he writes about it. So that was the reason why. So why is Ramayana, Mahabharata not taught to our children in school and colleges? In the West, Iliad and the Odyssey is taught as part of the reading for a liberal education. It is taught. Why is the Ramayana and Mahabharata not taught? Because these people decided Ramayana, Mahabharata are Hindu thought. They are not Hindu thought, they are Indian thoughts. When Ramayana, Mahabharata came, there was no other religion. There's only one Sanatana Dharma. Everybody followed. So what is wrong with it? Why shouldn't every child study Mahabharata and Ramayana in our schools and colleges? They should, because it's part of a culture. It's got nothing to do with Islam, nothing to do with Christianity, nothing to do with secularism. It's a cultural history. It contains the way India was and India is, and the values we hold dear even today. And the Hindu, by his very nature, is secular in the modern context. Why? Because Hindus, we believe Every human being has a right to follow the path he or she chooses. There is no one single path. There is no one single dogma. We have 300 Ramayanas. Nanacha says only Valmiki's Ramayana is the Ramayana you must study. You'll be right. But the 300 Ramayanas. There is no 300 Bible. There are 2 or 3 versions. There is no 300 Quran. Only one. They protect it. But we have. Why is that? Because our mind is free. Where the mind is without fear, into the heaven, let my country awake. In the heaven of freedom, let my country awake. That's our culture. So we accept everybody. As a Hindu, I have worshipped in 15 mosques around the world where they allow me inside. I've gone to 150 churches to the Vatican 4 times to pray. 50, 60 Buddhist temples all around the world. Maybe 100, 150 temples. I must go to more temples in India. But everywhere I go, I pray, oh God, Sarve Jano Sukhino Bhavantu. I don't pray for myself because I'm a Hindu. I pray for everybody. That's my faith. That's my civilization. So we are secular. We allow everybody. We are a free country with free thought. There is no single dogma. There is nothing which says you must do this and that. So why can't we promote Ramayana, Mahabharata, all those Vedas, all the great theses for people to study? In the West, you have the ecclesial schools. You have the schools of religion. The schools of religion in Stanford, in Harvard, in Yale, everywhere, in Cambridge, in Singh. Why aren't the schools of Hinduism in the universities in India? Why isn't Hinduism studied in an academic manner all across India? There's a controversy in BHU about a Muslim being asked to teach Sanskrit. I have no objection to any Muslim or Christian teaching Sanskrit as a language. But I have an objection if that person teaches my religion. Why is that? Because to teach religion, you need to be a person of that faith. There's nothing wrong, we are liberal. We are okay. But if you go to an ecclesial school, there is no non-Christian who teaches Christianity. If you go to an Islamic school, there is no non-Islamic person who teaches Islam. Why is it that we are made to feel that, oh, you're not liberal, you're not this? Because there is this leftist mafia which try to suppress the Hindus so they can conquer and spread their poisonous ideology towards India. And that is why the best way to do it is suppress Hindu civilization values, suppress our Vedas, make our holy people look bad. Don't recognize our scholars like Sri Adi Kavi Naranachar or others. Don't fund Indian institutions. Don't set up schools of knowledge. Don't set up departments of comparative religion. Don't fund Sanskrit. Don't fund all that. And by doing that over a period of time, people will be diverse from their past and they become something else, and then we get into the mind and control the mind. So there's a movement of the left to control the Indian mind. Is there any other reason? That in a country where out of 137 crores, where 100 crores are Hindus, the Hindus themselves have no rights. And there is this bogus theory about Article 2930. You see, when the Constitution returned, you must read the Constituent Assembly debates. Our founding fathers debated. They came out of the trauma of partition. 10 lakh people were killed. Hindus were killed, Muslims were killed. It was brutal. And they said, India has a large Muslim population. Many of them didn't ask for that country. Their leaders asked, they left. What do we do about them? How do you make them feel comfortable? Because Sarve Jano Sukhino Bhavanti. That's our culture. So they said, every Indian will have fundamental rights. Every Indian will have all those rights. But some people who do not follow the majority faith will have the rights specially written down to reiterate that they can do this. So Article 2930. But our founding father said linguistic and religious minorities. Linguistic and religious. I'm a linguistic minority. So when I go on TV, somebody abuses me and says linguistic minority bashing. You're accused. And they all back and run away. I'm a minority. So linguistic and religious minority, they put it there. They didn't put it to deprive the majority community of the rights, to give them special status. They did it to protect them and say, hey, you're protected. And India is the only constitution in the world where this section is there, 2930. No other constitution in no other country, West or East, has this section. And yet we are accused of being intolerant. We accused of being totalitarian, not taking care of minorities. It's ridiculous. Why does it happen? Because we keep quiet. All of you keep quiet. All of you don't compete. All of you don't stand up and fight. You'll be keeping quiet. So culture will only improve in a country, will be preserved in a country where the people of the country stand up and say we must invest in culture. So people like you should come together, fight for our rights, and tell the government of the day, our taxpayers' money should be spent partly on culture, and you must spend it on Indian culture, Indian civilization values. And Indian civilization didn't start when Muhammad Ghori came to India, other than the Mughals ruled India. It started long ago. We don't know when. It started long ago. And it has to be preserved. It has to be maintained. And we should not be abused. Our holy icons should not be abused. Our holy men should not be abused. Our scholars should not be abused. They must be recognized. They must be given their due. The money must be spent. Sir, state government, union government spend 50 lakh crores a year. We are not poor. 50 lakh crores. Union budget is 29 lakh crores. Now I think 60 lakh crores. 60 lakh crores. Can't they spend money on promoting Sanskrit? Not in those kind of things. Because after Nehru, they didn't want to fund Sanskrit. They didn't want to fund Indian civilization. They didn't want to fund any of this because they said, beda, beda, beda. How can you say beda to the people of this country? So, for a cultural renaissance to come, for the preservation, communities have to come together. The Kannadigas have to come together. The Tamils have to come together. The Malayalis have to come together. Kannada has been declared a classical language. But how many scholars are there? Where are the scholars? Tamil is the classical language. Where are the scholars? Because the state has not invested in scholarship. Now, one question will come about language, then I will end. When the Chinese can teach the people in Chinese, when the French can teach the children in French, when the Germans can teach their children in Germany and still be great economies, why can't we teach our children in Kannada, in Bengali, in Malayalam and still be a great country? Sanskrit also. There's one reason. Because the long years of foreign rule and suppression, knowledge creation in our languages is very less. There is Sahitya. Sahitya is there, but there is no science. There is no technology. There is no history. There are not many things being written. Why is that? Because there is no money. There is no investment. What do the French do, the Chinese do, the Germans do? They translate the world's knowledge into the local language, so the children learning the local language are not deprived of the world's knowledge. You understand? So they spend money on translation. 75% of the books in China are foreign translation. 70% of the books in France are foreign translation. They translate. France is a small country like Karnataka, of course rich. Germany is like Tamil Nadu, rich. But they translate. So when you learn German, you learn French, all the knowledge of the world, everything published in any language is available for you in your own language, so you're comfortable. You speak the language at home, you speak the language at school, you learn in the language, you're okay. But here, the knowledge is not there. We have not spent enough. How much money does the government of Karnataka spend on translation? How much money? What are the translation they have done? And once you spend on translation, you translate Kannada into English, into French, into German. You spread our culture. You spread our culture. How do you spread culture? Through translations. Shakuntala by Kalidasa is one of the greatest pieces of literature ever in human history. How many people in the world know about Shakuntala? Nobody, even Indians don't know. This is a tragedy, sir. Yeah. Yes. But we have to translate. Translation has to come. We must translate the world's language, our language into the other language. Then we must invest in linguistics. You must invest in scholarship, so our language is kept alive and the language comes up, and then the knowledge. Because we have to prepare our children for the work. Vasudeva Kutumbamam. Vasudeva Kutumbamam. Vasudeva. Vasudeva. See, I am also an illiterate, you must forgive me. But we must prepare our children, so we must do all that and preserve culture. Communities should come together. We Kannadigas should demand of Yedurappa. We want 100 crores a year for translating Kannada into all languages, Indian and foreign, and we want that money to be spent for translating the world's language here. And we want 500 crores a year to be kept for preservation of our culture, for nitya, for kavita, and for other forms of cultural expression. And that money must be spent because it's our money. It's not his money. It's not Delhi's money. It's our money. We pay taxes. We must demand. Unless all of you get together and demand, it's not going to happen. And that's the way to preserve. And we must not fight against languages. We must fight to make our language better. If Kannada becomes better, you know, if he speaks in Kannada, it's so beautiful. Because he's speaking pure Kannada. Not that Kannada in the movies that. Pure Kannada. It's so beautiful. Tamil is so beautiful. You know, Malayalam is so beautiful. Difficult to understand, but so beautiful. And even, you know, Telugu is so beautiful. Telugu has got every word ends with a vowel. It's so beautiful, it's so musical. Because why? They were done. And in Konkani, we want a lipi to be in Devanagari, but people still want some Latin and all that. There's a problem. And our Devanagari lipi and our lipis, whether it's Malayalam or Tamil, are based on the phonetics of the language. How we speak. From speech comes language. From language comes the lipi. Lipi was not born and then this was born. After human beings started speaking, that speech led to construction of the lipi. So we have to invest in that, and unless we invest that, we are not going to prosper. We are not going to. Look forward, 2050, 2100. India will be the youngest country in the world. India will be the second or third largest economy in the world. We will become rich. We will become prosperous. Because in the last 5 years, Narendra Modi has done more for the poor of this country than any prime minister in 5 years. All the data says so. So poverty will go. Our children will get educated. Today, every year we graduate 90 lakhs graduates. Many of them, but they're graduates. 90 lakhs. 26.5% of young people 18-23 go to college. It'll go to 50%. By 2030, we'll graduate 1.8 crore young people. So degree will become like SLC today. SLC. When we all studied, you studied SLC. SLC was very big, right? My mother got a rank in SLC when she's a school teacher in Coorg 40 years ago, 50 years ago. We have to encourage the Buddhijeevis. We must put them on the totem pole. We must take care of them. We must give them a comfortable life so they can study. They can apply their mind full time, 24/7 to their scholarship. And only then will our civilization go forward. Because money alone will not drive civilization. It is the culture. It is the Sanskriti. It is the literature. It is the Kavita. And in India, our civilization puts people of accomplishment. Not the man of money, not the man of power, not the man of bulk. People of great thoughts at the top and worships them, because that is where a civilization will go. Huntington wrote the book, The Clash of Civilization. And he says, civilization drives the world forward, and there will be clashes. So today in this world, there is this clash of ideas of civilization. Christianity to the evangelical movement is coming forward. Our people are getting converted. They're coming and abusing Hinduism. You can see the videos. And they're pumping in money. They're pumping $2.5–3 billion to convert. You go to Tamil Nadu, it's pathetic. Sangam civilization is getting destroyed by the evangelicals. You go to Andhra Pradesh under that YSR, all this so-called pastors are running amok, abusing us, and we keep quiet. So they are trying to push their ideas into India, because India is the last bastion left of a last civilization. The Chinese control the country, they will not allow. But we are a free country. And then we got Islam coming there and trying to push his ideas. The world is a clash of civilization, clash of ideas. And if we have to survive, we have to live together, we have to prosper. Economically, we'll prosper. We're doing well. We're doing well. We don't have to worry. We will do it. We will conquer the world. But culturally, if we don't do that, what becomes of us? What becomes of the future? What becomes of our children? What becomes of our Sanskriti? Will Sanskrit be stopped in his country of his origin? The most perfect language the human being can ever imagine and think, ever created in human civilization. Will it stop in this country? Will the Ramayana be consigned to dusty books in some chest in a museum? Will our murtis in temples be stolen and kept in museums to be paraded? I went to New York, Battery Park. There's a museum of the American Indian. They were natives who were called Indians. The Americans killed them, butchered them, destroyed them, passed genocide. The only place you can see them is museum. So will Hinduism in future be only consigned in museums run by the left? We don't want that. Niti, niti, niti. Allah? Neti, neti, neti. We don't want that to happen, and for that we have to fight. So, madam, you must lead the battle. You must collect the communities. You must translate books, raise money from everybody. Everybody should contribute. And you must raise the money. And you must distribute, have libraries everywhere. And you must all go to government, go to our Chief Minister Yedurappa and say, we want this money to be kept apart. He will not resist the idea. Nobody can resist the will of the people. And we are the people. This country belongs to us. This is our country. Yes, every faith lives here. Yes, there's no doubt. They have equal rights. Everybody has equal rights. But we must be given our rights. We must not be oppressed. We must not be suppressed. We must not be made third-class citizens in our own country. So I will end by thanking all of you. I've tried to explain why our culture declined. It declined because of economic oppression, the lack of patronage. And after independence, it declined because of political reasons, ideology of the left. And now that left is destroyed, hopefully. It still resides in Delhi and Jadavpur University. But the Indian is coming forward. We have a yogi as CM of UP. People condemned it and say, oh, yogi, how can he be CM? I wrote an article and said the rise of the yogi and said, he's a 5-time MP. If you become an MP, you can rule. What is wrong? It's the will of the people. And he's done good work. Ayodhya has come back to life. Kashi is becoming beautiful. Our Prime Minister is from there. The Ghats are reverberating. If we go to Mathura, hopefully the Jamuna will flow again. All over India is coming up. The Renaissance is coming up. So we must fight for that. We must try to put more money. We must teach our children how to be a Bharatiya. Because wherever they go, the Bharatiya culture, our heart should be Indian. And teach a little bit of Sanskrit. They should all learn Ramayana. When I was a child, when I went to sleep, my father used to teach me the Ramayana, tell me stories. And we used to cry too. When Rama was sent away in exile, we used to cry. But I didn't teach my children. And I feel bad. I've been a bad father. Because I used to work, come home late. So we must teach our children our epics. They must grow up as full-fledged citizens, confident, Bharatiya. They must have the knowledge of the world, go to any part of the world, and survive and grow and say, I'm a proud Indian. Thank you very much.